Hello and welcome back to the Nutrition Digest podcast. We are your hosts and registered dietitians, Alicia Kugler, Tara Valenti, and Summer Merrick. We are here to dish up the nutrition tea, to debunk the myths, to inspire, to inform, and hopefully to entertain. And today we are diving into a topic that was actually inspired by Alicia's recent functional fitness competition. Alicia, what inspired this episode today?
So I was doing a CrossFit competition on Saturday. And so basically the structure of the day was you had 4 workouts spaced out every 2 to 3 hours, and you're trying to keep your energy levels up. And I was walking around between events and I was kind of unintentionally just observing what people were eating and drinking. And I was thinking about all the things that I was seeing, and I was like, oh my God, it's so common for athletes. I don't know. I think it's a lot of there's so much misinformation online, and it's common for them to feel overwhelmed and confused. And so that was why I was like, hey, we need to touch on the nutrition mistakes that we are seeing over and over again. And I know I set the text that night and was like, we need to do an episode on this, because I think we've all seen it with clients, with friends, at events. So whether it's CrossFit, functional fitness, high rocks, triathlons, marathons, cycling, and even a weekend tournament. I've got a client who does ball hockey, and we were talking a lot about how she can feel when she has 4 games in the same day. And it was funny when I was talking to her about what a lot of her other teammates are doing.
It's you can't turn off your dietitian brain. You just kind of happen to notice things, and you're like, don't go into dietitian mode. Just focus on what you're doing. But you can't help it. I was a swim coach for 8 years. And to this day, when I see people swimming and their form looks like shit, it drives me crazy. I want to go fix it.
I feel like that too. Even for things obviously things when I'm working out and fitness exercises, things like that. But whenever I'm somewhere and I see people performing in a circus capacity up in the air on silks, I'm just constantly well, maybe you could do that a little differently. Yeah. And you don't want to be judgy. It's not like I'm trying to be judgy. It just kind of happens. You just know your thing, you know?
You know your thing. Yeah. And also a lot of times with the stuff that we're into, with whether it's nutrition or swim or circ or anything, if you're doing it wrong and you're doing it wrong a lot, you're likely to hurt yourself. So we actually just care. We care.
Mm-hmm, I think I found that the most when I was doing a particular workout at a particular fitness company. And it was great. I loved the workouts. They were so good. I loved how they were organized. And it's very, very popular. But I think either the coaches maybe didn't have a lot of training or they were new to fitness, but I would get so upset because I'd be doing some of the functional strength stuff and I knew how to modify, I knew how to do everything. And I was just seeing people over and over again. And I was just like, you're going to get hurt, man.
I think also people are watching these crazy workouts that people are doing on TikTok and stuff. And then they go to the gym and they try to do what they saw. Mm-hmm. And it's not working.
There's a reason why it's on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel a lot of the times. Basic stuff works best.
Yeah.
And even with the nutrition, a lot of times it is basic is best. And people are trying to overcomplicate it and make it a lot more hard for themselves and others around them.
Mm-hmm. Or you want the quick fix. You want that really cool new thing. You want the quick fix. I think that's one of the biggest things in terms of nutrition and getting fit or losing weight. It's we see so much stuff online promising the latest, greatest, easiest way to drop 20 pounds, gain muscle, whatever it is. And the reality is going back to basics is usually the best thing to do.
Yeah. If it's boring, you're probably onto something.
Exactly. Yeah. And these athletes are so incredibly dedicated to their training. And it's when it comes to their nutrition on a game day or competition day or whatever it may be, sometimes the nutrition is an afterthought. And so we wanted to really kind of clear that up today, just kind of tackling some of the big ones that we've seen. Tara, I'm going to actually ask you about the first one because I know you have a big race coming up sooner than mine.
Yeah. So our first mistake that we wanted to talk about is saving your race nutrition for race day. So not planning ahead. Doing a little bit of planning ahead of time can really go a long way. And if you really think about it, like you're putting so much time into your training, we should also be training our nutrition. That's another piece of the puzzle, so to speak. If you are not paying attention to your nutrition during your training, your race day nutrition is going to be sketch. It's going to be questionable because you have to test out what things work for you. For me, it's running, right? If you're doing like a long run, we should be testing out the race nutrition for that long run to see if it sits well with your gut, to see how your energy level feels, to see if it's the right amount, to see if you like the flavors of some of these things or if they're disgusting or the textures. Like if we're talking about gels specifically, like goo is really thick and people, Alicia doesn't like that. And then there's some of the gels that are much more liquidy and almost like something you could drink. And I prefer those too. So figuring out what works best for you, figuring out the formula that is going to sit well with your gut, but also not just, I mean, we're talking about what you're consuming during your actual activity. We also need to master what we're consuming prior to our activity so that race morning comes, you know exactly what to do. You're not fumbling, wondering what you can get your hands on, thinking about things like if you're traveling, what are you going to have access to? You're probably not going to have a toaster in your hotel room. So maybe we don't want something that requires toasting, you know, or like, are you good with having it untoasted? Like these are all the little details that have to be thought about ahead of time and planned for. One of the key things that is a little bit more, I don't know, sciencey or physiological that sometimes people aren't familiar with is gut training. And we've talked about gut training in previous episodes before. I think it's important to come back to it and highlight it again because just like you train your muscles or your cardiovascular system over time, you also have to train your gut over time. So your gut needs to get used to accepting fuel and utilizing fuel while you're doing hard work. And if it's not used to that, you show up at race day and suddenly you're guzzling down gels and your GI tract is not going to accept that fuel and you're not going to feel good. And that's where we see people feeling nauseous, feeling like they have a rock in their stomach. We see people having GI distress, like feeling like they have to go to the bathroom during competition. Like these are all things that you definitely want to avoid. So training your gut during your training cycle needs to be something that you intentionally program in.
I think you're right. And I think there's a couple things that I wanted to just kind of highlight. Number one is that it's not simply just training your body to accept different types of foods like gels or something, but what's actually happening during the exercise. So you're putting your body under all this stress. So it's already going to be in a different situation than if you're just hanging out in your house or just trying some new food. So you need to try them while you're training. And then the other thing, to the point of exactly what Tara is doing, and I've seen it with people training for Ironman, is it's very, very hard to train for an endurance event that lasts longer than 5-6 hours. You can't train for 12 hours all the time if your race is going to be 12 hours. So you have to really, really give it a lot of thought and see what's going on with your gut so you can plan for that longer race day. So like Tara, what do you do? Because if you guys don't know, Tara is doing an ultra this coming weekend. So she would be the foremost expert on what to do for these long endurance events.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like, and if you've ever done an ultra, you know, like you plan, you do the best you can. There's going to be some surprises along the way. I think one of the most common mistakes that people make with the really long endurance stuff, so like anything that's over 4 hours, is relying only on gels for nutrition. Great for a marathon, no prob. Like most people do fine just having gels for that duration. But when you are going all day long, like I'm expecting to be out there for at least 10 hours on Saturday, I don't want to have gels all day long. That's probably not going to go well for my gut, especially after hours and hours and hours of movement, relatively strenuous movement, not too strenuous because I want to make it to the finish line. But so you have to start trying real food during your trail runs as well. So if you're fueling only with gels during all of your trail runs, and then you go to race day and you think you're just going to be able to be okay on just gels, you're going to be hit with a surprise. That actually happened to someone that I know who did his first, it was a 100K. And it was really hard, 100K, like very, very hilly, mountainous, lots of elevation. And they fueled with only gels. And they were crushing the whole first half. They were like doing so well. And then right around that halfway mark, the gut was just like bloated, gassy, that felt like they had to go to the bathroom. And their body, like physically, they were strong enough. They had the endurance, they had all the training under their belt. But because their nutrition wasn't dialed, they hadn't practiced with anything other than gels. That was what killed their race.
My first Century Ride race, I had just been training with gels. And for me, it wasn't so much that my gut, it was I was bonking. The gels were not enough substance. And I got halfway through and it was like extraordinary, horrible conditions because you don't know what's going to happen on race day. So we were expecting sunny conditions. No, we had sideways pouring rain for the first 50 kilometers. And then we had these crazy winds that were like 40, 50 miles an hour. So for our Canadian listeners, that's a lot more. That's crazy winds and like really horrible conditions. And my body was just going through the gels too quickly that I was just bonking and bonking and bonking. And I needed to have other real food with me. And I wasn't planning for that. And I hadn't practiced with real food.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when I am racing a marathon, I usually try to fuel every like 45 minutes, roughly. But for this race, I'm going to try to fuel every 30 minutes because it's
that
just
makes sense. You just
need more.
You have so much time that you're on your feet. So the burn is going to be even greater. You know, the needs are going to be greater.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Tara, like if you ever had a client or yourself that like maybe they train with a certain kind of fuel and then the race day, they're like, oh, maybe I should add like caffeine gels into the mix. Like I recently had a client that was doing a half Ironman and she's like, oh, should I do the caffeine gels or the regular gels? And I'm like, what have you been training with? Because it comes back to like, you don't want to be screwing around with something new on race day. Yeah, because that's just an equation for your body to just be like, hey, this is not what I'm familiar with. And something as simple as caffeine can change a lot.
Yeah. And if you're like, oh, but I have caffeine all the time, like, and I'm totally fine. Like it's very different having caffeine. Like right now I'm drinking a coffee and my body loves caffeine versus 5 hours into a race, throwing caffeine into your system. If you haven't tried it before, you just don't know how your body's going to respond. And some people respond really well and some people do not respond well. And you just don't want to find out on race day. And I feel like, Alicia, what you just said about like, what have you been training with? That's just the question you should ask yourself anytime you're like, should I try this? Just ask yourself, have I been training with it? And if you haven't been training with it, you're not doing it on race day. Hard rule. We're not playing around with experimentation on race day.
And one more, just kind of a shameless plug to throw in there. If you don't know how to train your gut for your race, this is a great time to reach out to a dietitian. Like, honestly, this is what we help people do all the time. Because not only have we done it for ourselves, but this is what we help our clients do. So if you're not sure how to go about this, it's not easy. It's kind of sounds like it's not rocket science. But if it is a longer race or you haven't done it before, you may be struggling with what real food you should eat or could eat, or what should you try? What do experts recommend, people who have done it themselves? So if you're not sure, it's a great time to consult with a dietitian to talk about it.
Yeah. Also to prevent you from making some of these mistakes.
Exactly.
I was looking, Alicia, I feel like you're going to be like nodding your head when I say this. I was looking at my Salt Tab electrolyte chews because they're delicious and I like them. And I was like, I feel a little gassy when I have a lot of these. I wonder what's in them. And they have magnesium citrate in them.
Oh.
Yeah. Not a lot, like just a tiny bit.
But it's enough if you're having a few.
Yeah. If you're using them all day, dude. Okay. So, and for those who don't know, magnesium citrate, it's gonna make you shit if you have enough of it. At most, it's going to make you shit. At minimum, you're going to get gassy. You're going to get bloated. Like your gut is not going to feel good. And that's not just people who are sensitive. That's like all humans. I don't know why they put, of all types of magnesium citrate in these things.
Unbelievable.
So in doing my math, I was like, okay, I got to look up like how much is kind of like the minimum tolerance of this so that I don't overdo it with these, because I want to use them, but I don't want to use too much of them. So these are the types of things that if you're working with a dietitian, like we're going to catch this stuff. And doing the math for all of the carbs and all of the sodium and all of the ounces of fluids and all of that for like an entire day long race, it takes a long time. I would have loved to have someone do that math for me.
So let's move on to the second mistake that we see people making, and that is people using caffeine to compensate for poor sleep. Now, if anybody knows me, you would know that I'm not the best sleeper, and I've always struggled with sleeping. I nap all the time. It's my lifelong thing that gets me. And if once I solve it, I'm going to be the happiest person on the planet. But this is for people who are going into race day, and it may not be for anything you're doing wrong. You're excited, you're nervous. So say you're sleeping less than normal. Say you've decided you get up, you're exhausted, so you're going to have your coffee instead because you're exhausted and you need to be ready to start the race, or you take a pre-workout and you're not used to doing that, or drinking an energy drink that you're not used to having. And what happens? You feel like shit, right? Literally, physically, all of it.
Especially the pre-workouts, because it's not just caffeine in the pre-workouts. There's other ingredients too that will give you shakes.
Absolutely. So there is a difference between using caffeine strategically for your run, exactly like what Tara was saying with salt tabs and everything, using those things strategically as opposed to using them because you're exhausted or as a coping mechanism or a crutch, right? So caffeine can have some really amazing benefits: improved endurance, lower perceived effort, improved focus, but more isn't necessarily better. And something else that you could train with, and I don't see it as much in the US as I've seen it in, when I was living in Australia and stuff, is using caffeine tablets. I like it, and people will always like turn their nose up and, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would do it. Sometimes, like for me, coffee especially makes me feel very heavy and very full. So I don't want that feeling, but I need a little bit of boost of the caffeine. So I'll take a caffeine tablet and it works great. But you have to train with it, right? So anyway, you want to learn, you want to, again, practice these things. What is your tolerance? You don't want to have GI distress. You don't want the jitters, like what Alicia was saying. Also, that elevated heart rate. Have you guys ever experienced that where you've had too much caffeine and your heart feels like it has the flutters? You do not want that during a race. All right. You don't want to feel like you're going to have a heart attack. And also, it can increase your anxiety. So if you're already nervous about the race and then you're throwing in multiple cups of coffee beforehand, you're just going to increase that anxiety. Don't save it for race day. Practice ahead of time.
Alicia, there's a genetic component to that too, right?
Yes. So the nutrigenomics test can actually test to see if you're someone that's at risk for getting anxiety from caffeine, because there's a specific gene for that. I think sometimes people innately know if they're sensitive to caffeine, but if you're not 100% sure if you are, it might be something worthwhile that you can get screened for, which obviously if you have the gene doesn't necessarily guarantee that you will, but it's a pretty high likelihood. And everyone that I've seen that to have that gene knows that if I have too much coffee, I'm very sensitive. And I would say, like, even in settings where you already have a massive adrenaline rush, like you're going into a competition, you're going into a hard run, you're going into whatever setting, like a race, you're already kind of on edge. And then if you throw caffeine that your body's not used to and you potentially have some risk factors associated, that is just a horrible combination that you're setting yourself up to either crash, bonk, have GI issues, feel like shit mentally. It's not worth it.
Yeah. On the other side, though, if you're a person who is, I think it's a fast metabolizer, I always mix the two up. But if you're someone who responds well to caffeine, you can get more of a benefit from it during exercise than someone who doesn't. And I have that gene.
As I pour myself a second cup of coffee.
Yeah. I use caffeine strategically on my runs. I'll just use like a caffeine gel, usually like on the second half when I need it. And it's amazing how much better you feel.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think using it during, like, I'm someone that personally, when I'm training, I'm like very careful about how much caffeine I have before endurance exercise. But I would be actually more likely to add it during the exercise versus right before, when I'm starting to kind of like maybe have a dip in energy or a dip in like the mental load. But like for weightlifting and other forms of movement, I would just be using caffeine more before.
What should you not eat before
Yeah. So this was actually the one thing that I saw on Saturday, and I was like cringing, and I almost walked over to the person. I overheard them having a conversation about, they had a big bag of peanuts, and she was just walking around between events, and she was an athlete, just handfuls of peanuts. And I was like, oh my God, this is like horrible. I'm like, this is going to be not great. And like in a situation where you have like less than 3 hours to digest before getting into it, it's eating too much fat before or between events like that. Or even if you're an athlete that you're in like a tournament and you're trying to have a bunch of events, we're not saying fats are bad. Fats are healthy for athletes in terms of like hormone regulation and so many other like sources of energy in general. The issue is fat is very slow to digest. It's slow to empty out of your stomach, and it can sit a lot heavier. And so when we're doing an event where we're asking our body to be high exertion, so we're in a little bit of fight or flight, our body is diverting energy away from our digestive system a little bit, and we're asking our muscles to like pump blood and really push. Having something that's going to sit heavy in your stomach is probably the worst thing. And I would argue that when I have initial assessments with the client, even if they're not an athlete, if I talk to them about like, oh, do you have something before your workout? Oh yeah, I'm afraid because I've had stuff before a workout and it doesn't sit well. I always ask them, what have you eaten? And most of the time it's like, I have a handful of nuts, or I have hard boiled eggs, or I have a slice of cheese. And I'm like, hey, the reason why you're terrified of eating something before your workout is you've only ever experienced high fat foods before a workout. And that is just going to make the workout feel horrendous. So instead, switching that for something that's going to be higher carbs, more quickly to digest, and thinking about the timing of things. So I know like for a lot of the athletes that I was with on Saturday, they were kind of like asking me about timing of things. And I was like, hey, how long do you have before your next event? Okay, so you just did a 20-minute, really intense Metcon. Okay, if we just have carbs now, you might be really, really hungry. Okay, let's have like a low fat sandwich with some deli turkey on it with some bread, and that you'll have some time to digest, and we'll have quicker digesting carbs before your next. Even athletes, like if you're going out for a big bike ride or a run, thinking about like a little bit of fat isn't going to, if you have enough time to digest, is fine. It's when we're overdoing the quantity, and you kind of have to pay attention to your body too with what kind of sits better. Like having, for example, a bagel with peanut butter and banana an hour and a half before you go for a run. If we know it's going to be a slower steady state run, long run, totally fine. If we know we're going out to do max effort, zone 5 sprint intervals, maybe we reevaluate that and we do bagel with honey and banana. So we're getting rid of that fats. And again, it's something you have to pay attention to and play around with to figure out what works best for you. Other choices for like pre-workouts that are really good to digest, like we know bananas, people love it. Applesauce. I know one thing is like the Go-Go Squeeze pouches. They're like fruit purees pouches, rice cakes. I personally love pretzels. I had a giant bag of pretzels with me and it's just kind of nice to have something that's salty, because a lot of quick digesting carbs are usually sweet, sugar. And you kind of hit a point where you're just like, can't have anything else sweet. And I know a lot of my like cyclist clients and running athletes like have a lot of issues with that too. They're like, if I have to do one more like dried fruit, candy, whatever. So something like that, the pretzel can really help to break it up. Sports drinks, like a sandwich, granola bar, dried fruit, all of those are really good options. I don't know, do either of you have like your go-to, besides like gels, that are like your easy carbs before a hard workout?
One thing that I'll do sometimes intra workout, lower intensity, to get some carbs and some sodium is actually club crackers. Like
those are so good.
Yeah, they have some fat, but they go down pretty easy. It's kind of like if you think about saltines, right? If you have an upset stomach, saltines work. Like it's kind of like on that same train or whatever. Yeah, the sweet fatigue is real. Oh my God. Like you just get so sick of sweets because everything is sweet. But I think like one thing that could be a good thing to remind people of is like the window of time. Like you said, it's going to be individual. It depends on each person. But I think that the rule is generally 1 to 3 hours prior to a workout. Generally, you can have something with a little bit more balance. You might have like a small amount of protein, a small amount of fat with your carb heavy meal. But then that 1 hour to 30 minutes before your workout, that's where we want to get rid of the fat, get rid of the protein, get rid of the fiber, and have pretty much just quick digesting carbohydrates, something that's not going to irritate your stomach at all. So if you're trying to do your planning and you're asking yourself, what should I eat? Think about that time frame, because I think that is helpful in guiding what your choice should be.
Totally agree. What's the next mistake that we see? And this one, it totally grosses me out. Like, it makes me want to vomit just thinking about it.
I know. Okay, so this one's about dairy, and it just makes me think of, oh my God, what movie was that? Anchorman? When he's like running and it's like hot out. This is Will Ferrell. He's like running and it's hot out, and he like grabs a glass of milk and like chugs a glass of milk.
Oh, no.
Like, at one point he says milk was a bad choice, and I feel like I've just quoted that so many times. So learn from Anchorman, and if you haven't seen that movie, what are you doing with your life? Like, you have to go see it.
So good.
It's so good. But yeah, so like having dairy before intense exercise is typically not a good idea. We're not like saying dairy is bad. We love dairy over here. We're all big fans. It can be a great tool for so many reasons, especially like hitting your protein targets and calcium. Athletes need calcium. We aren't saying don't eat dairy, but you definitely want to be mindful about when you eat dairy, because it can go poorly for you if you're having it prior to a intense workout or a race or a long run or any kind of competition. Especially sometimes we see people having like milk or like a protein shake or cheese or even ice cream pre-workout. Eating ice cream pre-workout, like, that just makes me feel nauseous, like, just thinking about it.
Okay, devil's advocate. And for some people, they think it's a sugar in ice cream. They're like, oh, it's sugar, I can have it. And I
can see why people would think that, and maybe it works for them. It's again.
Well, no. Does it actually work for them? That's okay. Does it actually? They think it's sugar. It's one of those like misconception things. Because I know Tara and I had a very not intense. I had a very good heart to heart about our love of ice cream and being mindful about when we're having ice cream, because
I love it.
Me too.
Now,
but I would not have it prior to a run or any sort of exercise.
Or honestly, for a lot of us, even like the night before a long run or an intense workout, like probably dairy before bed is not, like ice cream before bed is not necessarily a good idea. It's so good. I know. So like maybe just have a tiny bit. Just don't have like a full massive like 2 scoop or try to go with maybe a frozen yogurt because it has a little bit less fat. That could sit well.
That's what we've been doing. So shaved ice.
What is?
Oh, shaved ice. Yeah.
Shaved ice. Yeah. Because it's low in fat. Because after we had discussed it, Tara, I was like on a hunt. I'm like, frozen yogurt is not a thing in San Francisco or the Bay Area, really. And I'm like, what is the other option? Bingsu.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like Froyo was huge.
It's big in New York and big in Toronto.
For a while there, it was like everywhere. I don't know. Things trend,
Just wait. The Gen Zs, they're going to bring back the Froyo to the West Coast. It's already in the East Coast.
What about those Yasso bars? So many. They're so good. And my clients turned me on to them. I had never had them before, and they're really tasty.
Yeah. I started seeing them in food journals, and I was like, what are these?
Yeah, same.
The chocolate covered ones are so good.
Oh, I haven't had that one. I have the mint chocolate chip one in my freezer right now.
You got to try. The chocolate covered is the way to go.
Why is lactose maybe an issue for some people?
Some people, I don't know if it's most, a lot of people don't have the enzyme to break down lactose. So they are lactose intolerant. That's kind of a spectrum. Some people are more intolerant than others. And if that's you, obviously you're going to have GI problems if you're consuming anything with lactose in it. That is going to cause gas, bloating, cramping, diarrhea if you don't produce the enzyme to digest lactose. And most people know when they have lactose intolerance. It's not like, I think I might have lactose intolerance. It's like, no, I feel like crap when I eat dairy. the other thing is depending on the fat content, again, fat slows down digestion, slows down gastric emptying. So you can feel full, you can feel bloated, heavy, nauseous. You can feel like that milkshake wants to come right back up, you know? So thinking about like, are you lactose intolerant or sensitive to dairy in general? Does it give you GI problems? Normally, if it does, stay away from it anytime near your exercise, especially near race day, like night before, morning of, and definitely like in the workout. Don't have it. Milk's a bad choice. And then paying attention to fat amount as well. So lower fat is going to be better if you do tolerate dairy. That's where thinking about things like froyo because it's lower in fat, or shaved ice because it has literally no fat. Those are going to be better choices than like full fat Ben and Jerry's.
I know a lot of athletes before a big competition or run or things like that, they would want to go out, like, especially if you're traveling, you want to, like, maybe you didn't bring your dinner, you're not able to bring your dinner, you don't have prep space. And so maybe you're going out to a restaurant. I think one thing that I see a lot of athletes do in relation to dairy is sometimes they'll go out for like pasta or pizza the night before a big race. And especially like it's hard sometimes at restaurants with the pastas if there's like a big heavy cream sauce or there's a lot of cheese on the pasta, or even with the pizza, it's like, oh, I think about the carbs, but it's also there might potentially be a lot of cheese on it. So just thinking twice about like what they're choosing the night before in terms of like heavier fat, like milk fat, especially if you have a race or something in the morning. I know I usually will make requests for like, can I have this pasta, which is like a simple tomato sauce and maybe like chicken or like lean beef on it, and say like no cheese, no cream, because it just doesn't feel great in your stomach. And like, even if you are lactose intolerant, the heavier dairy might be an issue.
Yeah. So don't get the chicken Alfredo.
Exactly. 100%. It's delicious, but wait till after.
Yeah. The night before, so I fly into Oregon for my race on Friday and I race on Saturday. So my meal that night, I've planned out like everything I'm going to eat for that whole day while I'm traveling, which everyone should do if you're carb loading while you're traveling, because you need to be really thoughtful about how to get all those grams in and like not make poor choices at the airport, because that can really backfire. But I went on Google Maps. We're staying in a remote town, like mountain town, and it's mostly like pub food nearby. And so I'm going to stop at a Target and get some supplies prior to actually getting to the hotel. But I always have pizza before I race every single time because it works for me. Pizza's just in my blood, you know, it's like, but I am smart about the way that I order my pizza. So for me, cheese is fine. Like I have no problem with dairy whatsoever. And if I have dairy the night before, it's not a big issue for me in the morning. I've never had issues. So I know I'm okay there. You might not be okay, listeners. So know yourself. But I never get like pepperoni or sausage or like really fatty meats added to my pizza if I'm racing the next morning. So that's the adjustment that I'll make. And that's stuff that we should probably be thinking about. So definitely onto something with the pizza there, Alicia. That can backfire if you don't know yourself and if you don't plan accordingly and make adjustments based on what you're doing the next day.
One thing that I find people usually opt away from, or people are scared of, is sugar. And I think we've touched on it in previous episodes, and we've talked about carbs and we talked about sugar and like, but one of the biggest myths that I've heard circulating around is I don't eat sugar, or sugar is bad. And meanwhile, they're doing intense like marathons, high rocks, Ironmans, ultras, CrossFit competitions, and they're potentially under fueling substantially and afraid to have something that maybe is quicker for them to digest. Exercise changes your physiology. Especially during the prolonged exercise where your body is in that more like stress state that we were talking about with the fight or flight, our body needs quick, easy digesting food items. And sugar is super easy for our body to break down and becomes a fuel source. I know I've had a few conversations with clients that are like, oh, Alicia, I need to have just real food during my rides. I need to not have sugar and gels and candy. And I explained to them that like, listen, that sugar and those candies or those gels that you're having during your workout, during your run, during your cycling, our body is digesting that. Our body is using that for the immediate energy needs. We're not worried about the health consequences. And I think that's what a lot of people think. They're like, sugar is bad, sugar is diabetes. Because I think there's a lot of presence in the media around like sugar is bad. sugar's the demon. But that's actually the fuel source. And you actually could be doing more to stress your body in those moments, which could have more consequences in terms of negative performance and potentially even body composition. If you're under fueling, that could be definitely like your body just will eat away its own muscle mass. And you're going to see like end up in a situation where you're just going to end up, I hate this term, but skinny fat, because you're just doing a lot of intense exercise and you're breaking down your body, which is not ideal. Let's not do that. And I know for us, it's like we recommend sports drinks and gels and chews and other like quick digesting carbs that are really going to be crucial in these events. And yes, in everyday life, we're probably not telling you to go out and eat these things throughout the day, unless you're carb loading, unless you're trying to recover from exercise. But during exercise, it's a completely different situation. I don't know if either of you have had to have this conversation with clients, kind of explaining that it's like sugar is okay when you are exercising, or even before exercise or after exercise.
Yeah, I have. I definitely have had the conversation both directions. So, people who are training really hard and training for really big things and are afraid of sugar because it's quote unquote bad for you. And then I also do have, which is not our topic of conversation today, but I do have people who maybe aren't doing a big heavy load in terms of training, who are relying on gels for like, I don't know, a 5K, or, massively carb loading when they're doing the same thing, like a 5K or 1 hour workout or something like that. And we have to kind of put the kibosh on that one. But you're right. Our body needs sugar. Like that is what carbs are. Carbs break down into sugar, and that is what we need to fuel ourselves. If you're not going to have it and you're putting yourself through this intense period of fight or flight, stress, and we're not fueling properly, you're not going to get the results you want. So you're not setting yourself up for success. And, if you're going to put all this effort into training, and like Tara said at the beginning, and you're not going to fuel yourself appropriately, you're just setting yourself up for a situation where you're not going to achieve the results that you potentially could have done.
I think we also have to think about it from just a logical perspective. Like, why is sugar generally considered not a good thing if it's consumed in excess? Because it causes your blood sugar to be elevated for a prolonged period of time. And if your blood sugar is elevated for a prolonged period of time, that's where we see inflammation and we see damage and we see increased risk for conditions like diabetes. But if you're consuming sugar while you are exercising, your body is using that sugar in the moment. You're not experiencing chronic elevated blood sugar as a result of overconsumption of junk food. You're literally using it as fuel in the moment. It's totally different. These are very different scenarios, and they really aren't things that should be talked about as though they're the same.
Mm-hmm. They're not being stored in your body and held there. You know what I mean? You're actually using it immediately.
Exactly. Your body's burning it off. I've had a lot of questions about, okay, so like you kind of convince the client of like, yes, it's okay to have sugar. And then they're like, well, how much? And I know I see this thing where, especially female clients, often they'll underdo the amount they need. Like for a lot of athletes, they need somewhere in the range of like 30 to 90. For most people, it's like 50 to 90. And I'll see clients where it's like they're having like 10 to 20 grams of carb an hour. And I'm like, this is not enough. You have a little bit more, because you avoiding having that carb is probably making you slower, probably making you sluggish, probably making your recovery worse. So it is going to really help. And again, it's one of those things you have to train. We've talked a little bit about training previously, and today already we've touched on it, but it's like train that and your body will actually use the sugars more efficiently and your body will feel better.
And if you don't know how to get in 30 to 90 grams, or you don't know what 30 grams of carbs looks like, you can look it up online, but you could reach out to somebody who knows, like a dietitian, because that is exactly what we can help you determine. Our last one is when people wait until they're hungry, thirsty, or cramping to fuel. It's too late. It's too late. You want to have fuel in reserve. You want to be fueling your body before it happens, before you get thirsty. You want to be hydrating. When that happens, you're already in a deficit. So for example, people I've known who've trained for an Ironman, the thing that you don't realize is you would sweat in the very first leg, which is the swim. You can't drink water then. You can't hydrate. So if you are not already hydrated prior to that and you become dehydrated by the end of the swim, you are in a deficit and you are having to try and climb out of a deficit, which is virtually impossible, right? So same thing. If you are hungry, if you all of a sudden find out that you're starving and you haven't been fueling yourself enough, what's going to happen? You may bonk. You may get cramps, nausea, dizziness, and that can also ultimately end up being a DNF. It can just destroy your entire race. It can undo all the progress that you've made. You don't want to experience those things during your race. So practice, train your nutrition, train your hydration. So it's not just fuel, it's hydration as well.
When I race, because your hunger and your thirst cues you can't rely on them. Like this is one of our biggest human flaws. Our cues are too late. So, and especially when you're exercising, like you're not going to get hungry. Like most people don't get hungry when they exercise. Sometimes I do, but like it's not very common. So the thing that I repeat to myself over and over and over again in my head when I'm racing or when I'm training for long runs is get ahead of it. Just get ahead of it. That's good. So like that mantra helps me to consume when I wouldn't necessarily otherwise consume.
And I think you can set timers. That's what I've known for people when they've done Ironman is they would set a timer. You said you do it when you're for food, but also for hydration. Every 15 minutes, take a sip of water. If you're naturally not feeling hungry, which you probably won't, or feeling thirsty, just reminding yourself you have to do it anyway to exactly to your point, get ahead of it. So you don't end up resulting being dehydrated, having no fuel, bunking, and undoing all your progress.
Totally. Yeah, I'm working with an Ironman athlete right now who is competing in a couple of weeks, and I'm like very excited. And we did the full breakdown, and I split it all up by time. So he knows exactly when he should be done with his first water bottle, exactly when he should be done with his second water bottle. Like we've broken it all down. And he's just going to have a little card so that he can reference it and make sure that he's on target for the duration. That's awesome. And that can be really helpful. So you set a timer and you also have like some kind of visual reminder. I know sometimes people will actually write it on their arm in Sharpie. Not necessarily great if you're swimming, whatever works for your situation. When you're doing a really long or a really intense effort, your head's not there. I get completely out of it. I can't do math. I don't remember what I did or didn't do. Like I'm out of it. I need an extra reminder to remind me that I need to keep myself alive.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I know with the client that I had that did a half Ironman on Sunday, we set up a little pack that she had on her bike because for her, it was the bike was like making sure she fueled. And it was really funny because it was like we had to set it up with like, hey, you have this and then this and then this. And she had it set up very strategically that she was alternating gels with real food. And then she had a Garmin bike computer that was giving her reminders on the bike. And she had it set up to go off on her watch for the run. And it was just like having it all set up and like just it's a lot of times it's organization and having the systems in place.
Knowing all of the little details, like for me, I was like, how much fluid can you carry on your bike? How many ounces are your water bottles? We need to make sure that the solutions he's using for his carbohydrate and electrolyte solutions are diluted the right way. That's a major thing as well. If your solutions are too concentrated, you can get GI issues. And a lot of people don't know that. They're like, oh, just put the pack in the water that I have. And it's like, that can backfire. So all of the little nuances and little details need to be accounted for and thought of ahead of time so that you can have a good day and not have to worry about it.
To wrap it all up, to bring it home, performance nutrition isn't about eating perfectly. It's about timing, digestibility, practice, and consistency. And the healthiest food isn't always the highest performing food in the moment. So again, thinking about not being afraid of sugars, planning and practicing your nutrition ahead of time, that can really set you up for success in terms of Ironman. Again, I keep coming back to it, but it's known as like the fifth discipline. It's like the extra discipline. It's just as important as your training. So thank you for joining us on this episode. We really appreciate you listening. If you know of anybody that may find this helpful, please share. And if you ever are looking for help with your own performance nutrition, reach out to a dietitian. You can reach us at any time. Alicia and Tara, good luck on your races coming up.